From his time as a student at various schools all across Alexandria, Dr. Gregory C. Hutchings is no stranger to ACPS. He completed his secondary career right here at T.C. Williams and is no doubt a qualified administrator and educator. Thank you for being here, Dr. Hutchings, and taking the time to speak with us.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Now, I just wanted to know, I know in your post-secondary career, or your professional career, you taught in Nashville, Cleveland, Manassas, but what really made you come back to ACPS and join the ACPS community again?
Yeah, so I've been in a lot of places, and I think that those experiences actually gave me the confidence to know I could come back to ACPS. I've always had a dream to be able to be the superintendent of schools here in Alexandria because of the fact that I am the person I am today because of many people from the city of Alexandria and also who are part of Alexandria City Public Schools. And I want to provide that same opportunity to the next generation of our leaders, and this was the perfect place for me to come and do that. So my goal was to come back and help change the world one child at a time.
That's great. Now, a huge topic in Alexandria, T.C. Williams, like all across the city basically, is the high school project. What are we going to do about the high school? So other than the options that you've put out, are there other options that maybe concerned citizens of Alexandria or the school board have put out?
Yeah, so right now what we're looking at is the Connected High School Network, which is having one T.C. Williams or one high school in the city of Alexandria. And we're doing a comparative analysis of what a second comprehensive high school and what that will bring to the city of Alexandria if we had a second comprehensive high school. So I think those really are the two options that we're looking at right now. Do we have one school in the city of Alexandria, or do we have two high schools in the city of Alexandria?
And the logistics of, let's say, two high schools, how do you think that would work?
Well, I think some of the things we're looking at right now with in regards to logistics is that we currently have T.C. Williams, which is 2,900 students. It's built, this campus, the King Street campus, was designed for 2,900 students, and we want to make sure it will always be designed for 2,900 students because we can't make it smaller, right? So we would be looking at a secondary or a second high school having about 1,600 students because over the next 5 to 10 years, our enrollment is expected to go from currently 4,000 students at T.C. Williams 9th through 12th grade to 5,000 students in T.C. Williams from 9th through 12th grade. So we would be looking at two schools, one that's pretty large, 2,900, and then a smaller high school of about 1,600 if we were to go down that path.
Now, I know the stigma might arise that, oh, I want my child to go to T.C. Williams. It's T.C. Williams, that's the better school. How do you think we can probably flatline that, theory that, or the thought that T.C. Williams is a better school in the community's eyes?
Yeah, so I think that's a conversation for our community, right? The fact that if we had two high schools, that we would probably have rivalries within the city of Alexandria that we would create. And I think that will be up for the community to decide, how that will work, having two of our high schools. Personally, I think that it could be, a challenge because, you're going to always have one school that thinks they're better than the other, but you can have also two schools in a city that work well together and they collaborate, and they're not necessarily rivalries, but it could be fun competition between the two high schools. It just depends on how we lay that out, but we won't know a final decision until September. Right now, we're leaning towards, the recommendation of the administration, and that is to conduct to have a connected high school network within the city of Alexandria, meaning one high school with multiple pathways for students to obtain their high school diploma.
And are there any proposed locations or maybe locations that, are could be a possible next high school?
So all of those things are right now in the process. We're going to be providing an update to the Board of Education on April the 25th, and we'll be laying out kind of the design plan as well as some of those options. So that information is going to go public in just a couple of weeks.
And another thing is maybe, have you guys thought about, schedules, maybe a staggered schedule? I know a lot of teachers that I've talked to have thought maybe, why don't we have some classes in the morning so some kids can leave earlier and some classes in the evening so some kids can leave later and kind of diffuse like the overcrowding at TC?
Yes. So we're putting together a part of the high school project, educational design team, and that design team is going to look at things like scheduling and courses that we offer, different programs that or pathways that we would like to have for students to obtain a high school diploma. So we're in the process right now of developing that educational design team, and that is one of their tasks. So we'll have more information in regards to what scheduling and potential programs and coursework could look like with the Connected High School Network or Second Comprehensive High School in the next few weeks.
And I know you talked a little about Mini Howard, but what really do you think will be the plan? What will Mini Howard become? Like, what's the future for Mini Howard?
Well, I think for sure we're going to have a new building at the Mini Howard campus, right? What it entails and what courses will be offered there, or what that looks like, the educational design team is going to work on. And as I stated before, we're just developing that team, so we won't have logistics around what courses, what pathways, until the educational design team has made some recommendations to me, the superintendent, and then we make the recommendations to the board.
And also, I realized or noticed a concern amongst my peers is athletics at TC.
Oh, yes.
There's been since there's so many people, I mean, how can we control how many people have an opportunity to join a team or so it's fair for everyone? Because I mean, the enrollment's just going to keep going up, and so not everyone's going to be able to play on a team or play on their favorite sport.
Yeah, so we just hired a new athletic director, Mr. James Parker, who's doing a phenomenal job. He's been on the job for 9 months now. And a part of us hiring him, he's had background experience working with AAU and with national organizations who deal with a lot of athletes at one time. And he's going to be able to bring that broad vision into TC Williams. And as we look at our athletic program, we really would like to see more engagement than we have. We have a lot of students at TC Williams, but the number of athletes is really not where it should be with the number of students that we have. So really what we need to begin to work on is how do we pique more interest in some of the athletic sports that we have, and how do we introduce some of the athletic teams or sports that we offer to kids earlier. So we're having a pathway into varsity sports here at TC Williams, and that's working closely with our middle schools and our and our elementary schools to ensure that kids are getting exposure to different sports that they haven't been a part of, like crew, for example. Unless you had an older brother or sibling who was a part of crew, you may not know, or a student who comes from an underprivileged environment, they may not know about crew. So how do we introduce new sports to kids at an early age to pique some interest so that we have more students involved in the athletic program at TC Williams.
And with all these decisions, how can someone like me or a Tynan citizen of Alexandria, have a say in this? How can they tell you what they want, what they think the city should do?
I think our kids, student voices are power, right? And what we have to do a better job of is making sure that we have focus groups with our students. You all know so much, you have so much better insight than we do as adults. Totally different generations. Sometimes we don't get you, right? And you all don't get us because we have different walks of life. But I think that what we have to do a better job of is having those focus groups, having opportunities for students to be engaged in our decision making and to provide us with some feedback on what are specific, whether it's courses or athletics or how we make decisions within the city of Alexandria. How do we do that better? And we're going to be doing more student engagement through this high school project. I think that you all are definitely going to have a seat at the table, our young people. And of course, we can't have everybody at the table, right? Because you have too many people at the table, you can never make a decision. But we do want to have representation and student engagement so that we are using the student voice to help us with our decision making.
And how do you think the city is helping ACPS, with the high school project, in terms of just ideas? And on that scale, how do you think the city's partnering with ACPS?
So the city, for one, with the collaboration that we have with the city has been pretty outstanding. I meet with the city manager every other week, which is a great thing for us, is we have a standing meeting. I know that our city council and our school board, their joint meetings that they have as well. Our mayor works closely with our school board chair and vice chair. And I think that all of those connections make the difference, in regards to us in a positive way. in regards to collaboration between the schools and the city. So there is a number of opportunities for us to work together, and they help us. You know, they work, they empower us, they encourage us, they support us with our endeavors for the city of Alexandria as well as for the schools. So it's been a very positive relationship, and we've been working very closely with them.
Now, on the same topic of concerns for about TC Williams, another concern I noticed in our school amongst staff and students is the distribution of resources from the International Academy and the rest of TC. How can we make sure that we balance the resources given to the International Academy so one part of the school isn't underprivileged or doesn't have the same access to other? Because I know for International Academy, let's say teachers are specifically, they should be ELL certified. How can we make sure that the resources are, well distributed?
Yes. So that goes back to we're doing our equity work right now and trying to build equity throughout all of our schools, including the International Academy. And that is making sure that students have what they need, not necessarily what we think they need, right? And every student may not be where we want them to be. And they may require some additional supports, or they may require less supports, depending on their particular situation. We have to make sure that we're being equitable in regards to our resources. We have to get away from just giving the same number of teachers or the same number of, supports to all of our schools, because they all have different challenges and different needs. So that requires us looking at how we allocate resources throughout our school division in a very different way. And what we're looking at is, what are the students' needs first? And what population are we serving? And what does that population need in order to thrive and to be successful? And that is a different way of looking at, allocating our resources. But that is what we're doing with our building equity work.
Okay. And another concern I noticed in the International Academy is that they feel really even though, we're not even an inch away from each other, they really feel divided in some sense, that, they're not a part of pep rallies usually, or just other activities. They feel like they're in a different scale from the rest of the Titans at TC.
Well, that's not good. I think that we need to work on that. I didn't get that impression when I visited the International Academy a couple of months ago. But I think that if that is the case, that we need to find ways to make sure there's a lot more collaboration and that students feel welcomed, a part of all of TC. As we're looking at the Connected High School Network model or philosophy, it's important that everybody feels a part of TC Williams as a whole, that everyone's a Titan. And it does require intentional efforts to make students feel welcomed and to make students feel a part of, so that you're not having silos with all these different departments. International Academy is housed right here in the King Street campus, right? So there shouldn't be a situation where they're not at the pep rally, right? They should know when the pep rally is. They should be a part of the pep rally. They should be engaged in different student activities, whether it's concerts or our athletic program and things of that nature, or speakers who come into the school. It should be open to all. And I think that if that is the case, we need to find a better way of engaging all of our students, regardless of if you're in the International Academy or our King Street programs, or Minnie Howard programs.
Indeed. And with that integration process, a lot of students feel that they come to school, or they come from a family that they're speaking Spanish. They come to school, they're speaking Spanish. They leave school, they're speaking Spanish. And they go back home, work, go back to their family speaking Spanish. How can we make it that, that with the International Academy, we're not that since we're a different academy, or they're a different academy, but they're immersed into the culture of TC Williams and America and Virginia.
So I know that many of our International Academy students, and ones that I spoke with when I visited a couple of months ago, many of them, they take some classes outside of the International Academy. And they are also involved in some activities outside of the International Academy as well, which allows them to assimilate into other cultures too. I think that we need to have some of our students who are part of the King Street program to be a part of the International Academy and to go in and visit and learn about some of the other cultures that are there. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for our students where the United States is their country, or their first country, that they get to experience some of the cultures that are a part of the International Academy, and vice versa. And I think if we go in with that type of philosophy, we're going to see that everyone's learning from each other. Like there's so much that you can learn from someone who has had a different experience than you have, or who was born in a different country, or who speaks a different language. There's so much you can learn on both ends, that there needs to be some two-way connections that are happening with the International Academy and any of our other schools.
And with that, I've noticed a problem that's, prevalent in not just the International Academy, but all across ACPS,
Yes.
is the achievement gap. So I just wanted to know, what's your thought and view on the achievement gap in Alexandria and ACPS?
Yes. So, I think that what's important for us in regards to the achievement gap is that we are making sure every student is successful. And everybody has a different definition of what success is, right? For some, success is them going out and getting a job after they graduate from TC Williams. For others, it's getting into a top university, right? For some, it's going to a 2-year institution. For others, it's going to the military, right? But trying to help students really define what success means to them and giving them the necessary support so that they can actually attain that success. And in regards to our achievement gap, what I'm seeing is that some students are not receiving the same kind of instruction and exposure to the same experiences. And that is what's leading and kind of perpetuating that achievement gap, or even increasing in some areas that achievement gap. So what we're going to be doing moving forward in regards to our equity work is, how do we tear down those barriers? How do we ensure that students have the foundational skills to be in upper level courses when they get to the high school? And we can't wait till 9th grade to do that, right? We have to start in 4th and 5th grade to start preparing them to take AP at high school. How do we make sure that students who may come from underrepresented or underprivileged environments, that they have experiences that their family may not be able to afford? Whether it's going to the Smithsonian in DC, whether it's having exposure to different types of things that cost money, whether it's summer camps, all those things will provide opportunities for kids to just get that exposure, which will narrow the achievement gap over time. And then also, how do we have staff, regardless of what your role is, any employee of ACPS, who genuinely believe that every single student matters, right? And that takes a special person. Everybody has a bias, no matter who you are. If anybody says they don't have a bias, they're not telling the truth, right? Because we all have biases. But how do you make sure we have employees who truly believe in every single one of our kids, who are willing to meet the child where he or she or they are, right? And making sure that they give them the care, the nurture, and the supports so that they can feel that they deserve to be at the table. And I think the more we can do that, we will see the achievement gap narrow over time. And I think all in all, we need to have some clear expectations around what we believe, in ACPS, and what we expect from not only our students, but also from our families and our staff members.
And with that, I kind of actually found facts. What kind of caught me off guard is that 5 of the 6 valedictorians, or the 5 of the past 6 valedictorians and salutatorians, actually came from George Mason Elementary School.
Wow, that's a statistic I didn't know either.
Yeah. It's crazy. No, so 60% of Alexandria students, or ACPS students, are under the free and reduced lunch program, which I think kind of correlates to the achievement gap. So with the free and reduced lunch, how can we, or with the achievement gap and SOL score, how can we kind of attack that?
Yeah. So one thing, we're attacking some of that now. And this is some information that, I really encourage you to investigate as well. Some of our schools that have very high percentages of free and reduced lunch students and students of color, so black and brown kids, right? Core Kelly, for example. Patrick Henry is another one of our schools. They're performing at very high levels in regards to the SOL data, and they're fully accredited and have been for several years. And that is totally against what a lot of research out there says about kids who come from underrepresented families and who happen to be black and brown. And we have actual examples of really allowing these students to achieve at high levels, remove barriers, and provide the necessary supports. And I think if we can continue to replicate the practices that are happening at Core Kelly and at Patrick Henry for students who have these circumstances, we will see all around our kids achieving at higher levels. Something happens when kids go from elementary to middle school. And I know life happens in some ways because, think of your middle school years, right? It's the awkward moment. You're trying to figure out who you are. You begin to get in cliques and things of that nature. And what we begin to do, I'm seeing here in ACPS, is we begin to categorize kids as to what path they're going to go down. And these pathways need to be more fluid, right? Just because you may not have been in honors in 6th grade and 7th grade, that shouldn't mean that you're now not going to be able to do honors at the high school or AP. So we have to make sure we have rigor in every class that a child enrolls in. And we have to set some high expectations for all kids. We cannot lower the bar for anybody. And if kids need additional supports to meet that bar, that's okay, right? But don't lower the bar for the kid. Give them the support so they can still meet the expectation. And that's a different way of doing business, here in ACPS, and that is how we're moving forward. Our kids have to be the center of every decision that we make. And in order for us to narrow this achievement gap, we're going to have some courageous conversations around race, around inequities, around barriers that have been in place for many, many years within our schools. We're going to have to really start addressing that and having those courageous conversations.
And yeah, you mentioned about the pushing honor classes and stuff to middle schools and middle schoolers. I noticed also just walking around TC, when every single time I had an AP class, that there would be 4 people of color in the class, and the rest would be just Caucasian. But then I would leave the classroom and just 2 doors down would be a regular math class or history class, and I would see that it's predominantly African American.
Yes.
And a lot of the concern about that, it's a lot of my friends have realized that when they're with their counselors, that their counselors are, maybe you should just take the honors class, or trying to lessen, or they don't think they're prepared enough for the AP class. So how do you think, talking with counselors, how can we motivate counselors to I guess take a safe chance, or take a chance with the students, and not really just, like you said, put them down, or say, just not encourage them to take those advanced classes?
I think that it has to start before the high school, right? I think that we have to, many of our kids, particularly our kids who are black and brown in Alexandria City Public Schools, they are very intelligent, and they can do anything that they put their hearts to. We have to make sure we continue to enforce that and encourage that and empower them. And I think something happens, even in society. In society today, you don't see as many prominent people of color on the face, of magazines or articles or stories, right? And you're seeing a lot more than when I was younger, though. We had a first African-American president of the United States, right? So I think some of those things have changed, but we're still not seeing enough, right? We're still not seeing enough. And I think that we're going to have to make sure, because we are predominantly children of color in this school division. That is most of our kids are black and brown, right? That's the majority for ACPS. We need to make sure that we are providing resources that allow them to see people who look like them. Yes. That they have staff members, and not just, support staff, but principals and teachers, and superintendent, right? And directors, central office administrators who also look like them. But we also have a presence. So not only are we hired, but that we have a presence in our schools, and we're sharing and empowering them. And I think that can make a difference, for us. I think that making sure that kids have the belief in themselves, right? That they believe they deserve to be at that table is going to make the difference. And what we have to do on our end is provide them with the necessary preparation and the foundational skills, so when they get into that AP course here at the high school, or those honor courses here at the high school, that they are able to be successful and to complete those classes. So that's my philosophy on that. But I do think that we do have some issues in regards to physical integration in our schools, meaning students of all races are in certain classes and are a part of certain athletic teams and are a part of certain programs that we have here at TC Williams. And in order for us to change that, we're going to have to pique interest at an earlier age and provide the necessary exposure at an earlier age, so that becomes a pathway right into those courses. And we'll see that change over time.
And I also see that, I mean, I noticed that a lot of my friends, let's say if they went to George Mason or William Ramsey, that parent involvement was very different.
Yes.
That, you know, George Mason, tons of parents, every student's parents would be PTA meetings. But, you know, you go to William Ramsey or you go to Patrick Henry, that, you know, it's kind of not as much as you would see in those other schools. How can we fix the parent involvement? Because I do feel that's like, you know, the anchor and the solution to fixing the achievement gap. But how can we fix the parent involvement in ACPS?
So, you know, one, we have our family and community engagement department here in ACPS, and that was one of the reasons why we wanted to have family and community engagement department, is to engage more of our families. And we're doing that with many of our parent liaisons who are at every school that's working with our parent body. And I think that we have to make sure, depending on the population that we serve, depending on the school, that there are different ways of engaging those families, because they have different cultures, they have different climates, they have different needs, and we have to make sure that we're customizing how we engage families depending on the student body we serve. And that requires us to not have a cookie cutter solution of how we engage families. You know, PTA can't be the only way a parent can be engaged in their students and you know, experience. We may have to provide childcare in certain places. We may have to provide translators because people don't speak the language, English as a first language. We may have to go to them versus them coming to us. We may have to provide transportation. You know, those are different things that we're going to need to do to ensure that we have the engagement within our different schools. I think we also need to realize and accept the fact that one thing we don't have control over is families, right? We can't control what the parent does, how the parent gets engaged, but we do have control over when the kids get to us in school. So we have to remember that let's put more energy, and it doesn't mean that I don't want us to continue to put our energy in our families, because we do, and families is an important component of a student's success. But let us make sure we're putting energy into the things that we actually do have some control over, and that is when kids walk into our schools, how they're being nurtured, how they're being cared for, the different activities that we provide them, the different supports that we're able to provide them, and the resources. And that is what we need to really hone a lot of our skills on in those particular areas. But the parent engagement piece is coming from our family and community engagement department, our parent liaisons who are working with those communities, and customizing how we engage them is going to be key to our success.
And with that, I just wanted to know, what do you think is your 5-year plan, or first, what do you think is your vision for TC Williams?
For TC Williams, what's my vision? For one, I want to see our kids leave TC Williams feeling like they can conquer the world, right? And whatever they choose. And I think that if we can pull that off, we have accomplished, you know, I think the American dream, really the world dream, of having that confidence to go out and do whatever you need, and having the ability to go out and do whatever you want to in this society. And I want to make sure that, you know, TC, you know, being a graduate of TC Williams, I feel that I had an experience to be able to be around people who weren't like me, who had all different walks of life. And that's a huge gift for us at TC, really for our entire city as a whole. And that is another vision, you know, of mine, is that we can continue to have the diversity and to use the diversity as a gift, and to make sure the diversity is just not in our hallways, but the diversity is in our classrooms, is in our athletic programs, and is in our valedictorians and salutatorians. And I think that if we can accomplish that, my job will be done.
And expanding on that, your vision for ACPS in, let's say, 5 years, or for the rest of your tenure here?
So if I go expand that, you know, moving forward, that in itself is going to take a lot of work, right? It sounds easy coming off of my lips, rolling off of my lips, right? Like that could just happen, but it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot of commitment. It's going to take a lot of courage, and it is going to take us no longer accepting mediocrity. We have to set the bar high for everybody. I have very high expectations for myself, right? And for my wife and I, we have 2 children who are ACPS kids too. So I'm an ACPS parent, and we have high expectations for them. And I think that it is important for us to be unapologetic around what we expect, because our kids deserve the best. You know, how do I choose as superintendent? How do I choose what kid doesn't get it, right? I never want to be in a situation where I have to choose somebody who doesn't get a high quality education, somebody who's not engaged in a wonderful learning experience. So my job, why it's so hard, is because it's 100% of our kids deserve that. And I have to ensure that 100% of our kids get that. And I'm going to spend the rest of my tenure working to make decisions to make that happen. And that is my commitment and my dedication, and what allows me to get up every day, out of bed, and get back into the work.
And your view on test scores, how do you think test scores can improve in the next 5 years or so?
Yeah. I can expect our test scores to soar. You know, I think that if we can build capacity with our staff, meaning having professional learning for our staff members, setting clear expectations around what kids need to learn, so our curriculum, which we've already done that work prior to my arrival here, but making the connection between our curriculum and what happens in the classroom on a day-to-day basis, and what kind of instructional resources teachers have, like textbooks and Desmos, you know, and all those other, you know, educational resources that are needed for kids to succeed. We have to make sure that everybody has what they need, and we will see that progress in regards to test scores, and we will see them soar. And I also think we need to keep in mind that our test scores, especially the SOL, is only one data point, right? There's so much more to our kids than that one data point. And I think it's going to be important for us to convey to our community that testing is one aspect, but we also want kids to have character, to have integrity, to have passion about something, to have, you know, extracurricular activities and engagement and involvement. And those things matter too. And I think that we want to make sure that we focus on that. And if we focus on those items as well, we will see the academics continue to increase, because that contributes to success. Those other out-of-classroom experiences also contribute to success. And we want to focus on those areas too.
And also, do you think maybe in the future, TC, like for example, I went to Corey Kelly and it was a STEM school, and so we really focused on engineering. We had lots of engineering, math, and technology stuff that we would do almost every week, and it would be fun and engaging. Do you think maybe we could move that to TC Williams, or have academies on like specific, let's say you want to go in the arts, so you start from 9th grade and you build up from there. Or you want to do computer science, so you start in, you know, Computer Science Academy or Technological Academy, and you start from there.
So everything you're saying is a part of the Connected High School Network. So like right now, you just sold the concept of a Connected High School Network. And that is that kids have different pathways. If you're interested in the arts, that you have that pathway. If you're interested in business, that you have that pathway. If you're interested in engineering or STEM or health sciences, that you also have that pathway. And we have some of those academies right now in existence. But making sure that, because some of our elementary schools have specialty programs, that we have, you know, a pathway for those, whether it's dual language or STEM or IB, that kids are able to do that all the way through 12th grade if they choose to. And that is what the Connected High School Network is all about. And I think that if we can give kids choices, right, and kids get to, you know, based on their interests, they get to kind of choose their path, that is what's going to allow 100% of our students to know that they are going to attain their success. Because we're not having a one-track mind or a one-way, you know, to get a TC diploma. There needs to be multiple ways, because every kid has different interests. Just like the world, there's so many different things to do.
And do you think maybe we'll attack, maybe, like you said, the curriculum in a different way? Because I noticed, like, even going through this whole high school experience that, oh, I have to have a fine arts credit, but I don't want to do fine arts ever when I get out of high school, or I'm learning things that I know I won't use. So why can't I use that instruction time to better myself on a topic or a career that I know I'll have or be interested in?
Well, I'm not the state superintendent, so I can't change the state requirements. But I do say I do support the different experiences, and let me tell you why. I think that even if a kid doesn't have an interest in the fine arts, that I think having that exposure for a semester or a year is okay, because, you know, you really need to to learn different things and grow from different things. I don't get to do everything that I love all day long, right? Yeah. So all aspects of my job is not things that I love to do, but I do them, right? And I try to do them to the best of my ability, even if it's not something that is like my favorite thing. Like calling snow days, right? That's not the favorite thing to do. And I feel like I didn't go to college and get a master's and a doctorate to determine whether we have school for a snow day or not, right? But I do it, and I make the decisions and get calls either way.
But we appreciate that.
Which, but I do think that it's important for kids to have the exposure to different, content areas so that they can be better equipped to go out into the world. And what you'll learn when you get older, right, when you get out into the world, that fine arts class might have taught you something that you need for when you become a parent, right, one day. And it can be an experience that is definitely something that you'll use later in life. Just right now, it doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Well, I know you mentioned that, but just like, just having a more fluid curriculum,
yes,
I would say.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I think that having a fine arts credit, but having a plethora of options within the fine arts is what I'm hoping and what the expectation I have, or we have really for our young people. So it's not like this is the only fine arts class you can take, like we want to have, so multiple options within that credit. So you can take something that's going to pique your interest and you'll have some choices. It's great.
I forgot to ask, but do you think maybe like our test scores or our SOL scores are maybe correlated to the size of our school in some way?
So help me understand what you mean by that.
Do you think maybe since we have such a large school and, sometimes our resources can, we won't have enough, not necessarily not have enough resources, but, we can't get to every student in some way, if you understand what I'm saying. But do you think maybe like if we had smaller classroom sizes or, just a smaller school, we could approach students or help students on a grander scale?
Yeah. So I don't know necessarily if there's a correlation between the size of a school, right, or even in some cases the size of class size. And I think you can get too large though in some cases. But I don't know if there's a correlation between the class size or the size of a school and the impact it has on an SOL, right? I think that if you have the right structures in place and the right supports for students, that the SOL score will come, that they'll become proficient on that, at some point. And I think that if we can focus on, students mastering objectives, if that can be our focus, not necessarily passing the SOL, but mastering what they're expected to learn, because some kids just aren't good test takers, right? That's why I'm always, skeptical about the whole SOL score, because and I was one of them, I'm not a good test taker, right? If you're not a good test taker, then you may have mastered the material, but you just weren't able to demonstrate that on a test, because that's just one tool to show your mastery, right? For me, if I was able to talk and tell somebody or teach somebody what I've learned, they would say, oh, you do know what you're talking about, right? But if I had to do a test, I have test anxiety. I always had that my whole life, right? I still have it. Now, I still take tests and I pass them, right? But, and I make the necessary scores that I need to get, like my license. I had to take a test to get my license in the state of Virginia. But, I still have that test anxiety, which can have an impact, on my score. So I think mastery is what we need to focus more so on versus the test score. But the state requires us to have the test score. So because I do have a Virginia license and all of our teachers do as well, we're going to live up to that expectation of meeting the SOL benchmarks.
And how can we show, I know you mentioned the test scores, how can we like, tell teachers that, a student's just not a test? How can we show them or change their mindset that, it's just not, we're just not like, based off of a test, or there's like one path in life? How can we, kind of change their thinking?
I think we have to just keep reiterating that. And I think with us having multiple pathways for our kids at the high school, that can also help. But just how we share information out, right? We don't want to look at kids as data points, right? Because you're bigger than that. You're more than that. There's so much more to you than your test score. I was talking to my executive coach yesterday, Dr. Billy K. Kennedy, and he was my superintendent. He hired me as an assistant principal, right, in 2004, so 15 years ago. And when I was like 25 years old or 26 years old, something like that. And I was young, right? And he was like, "You're worth the risk." But he took a risk on me, and he believed in me, which was great. The point I was trying to make, though, why did I bring up Dr. Kennedy? We were just talking about something else.
We were talking about teachers and test scores. And,
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, the point I was trying to make. So I was talking to Dr. Kennedy yesterday. Yeah. I went on a tangent for a second, but I was talking to delete that. But I was talking with Dr. Kennedy, who was my executive coach yesterday, and one thing we were talking about was that when you go to the doctor, right, you don't say, "Excuse me, Doctor, whatever the name is." I say Dr. Smith, right? Dr. Smith, what was your MCAT score, right? We don't ask that, right, before we go into the doctor's office. We just want to make sure that he passed the MCAT and he has an MD, or he or she has an MD. And we don't go to our lawyers and say, what was your score on a bar exam? So those aren't questions that we ask in professions, but we do that in education, right, with our young people who are still growing and being molded to go out into the world. That is a concern that I have. We put too much into a test score, and there's so much more beyond that. And I think we just have to keep telling our staff that, and telling our kids that as well, that you're more than a number. Like, you're so much more than a number. You have a full identity that includes so many different things. And if we can just focus on all those other things too, will make the difference for our young people, and will alleviate some of the anxiety that some of them have.
And lastly, going into our last subtopic, how do you think, or how is ACPS in Alexandria preparing for Amazon's move to our area?
One, we're excited about Amazon. I'm an Amazon Prime member, so I was just happy to have Amazon here. We're looking forward just to collaborating with Amazon and taking advantage of the opportunities that Amazon will bring. Our kids can have internships there and jobs there one day, and utilizing their employees to come into our schools to volunteer, and the resources that Amazon has, and the brand that Amazon has. It just gives us like an extra pep in our steps. And we want to take advantage of that. We want to welcome Amazon. We want them to know that Alexandria City Public Schools will be a partner with them, that there will be two-way kind of advantages to that, because we're going to be producing their next generation of leaders, we hope, right? So they can benefit by investing in us now and investing in our young people now. It helps their company and other companies all over this world too. So we're really excited about Amazon coming and the partnership that we will continue to have with them.
Well, Dr. Hutchings, we really want to thank you for being here and really allowing us to talk to you about, or to us Titans in Alexandrians. It really means a lot to us.
Yeah. And it means a lot to me. One, I'm proud of you for what you're doing. You did a great interview today. And for me to see our young people kind of like following their dreams and their goals and doing something that they're passionate about, because I can see a passion. Actually, you're natural at this.
Thank you.
That brings me joy. That lets me know that we are doing our jobs, right? That we are letting you be you. And one thing that, for our young people across this country, and I said it earlier today, one thing that our young people have to remember and know, you deserve to be at the table. And don't let anybody make you second guess who you are as a person. And when you have self-confidence and when you believe in yourself, you are unstoppable. And sometimes that is a threat to people, right? To have confidence. It's a threat to people to be intelligent. It's a threat to people to be resourceful. Don't ever let somebody intimidate you and think that you can't be, whatever you want to be. If I listened to people along the way, I wouldn't be sitting here today, right? Because there were a lot of naysayers who told me I couldn't, who told me I shouldn't, who told me I'm too young, who told me I didn't have enough experience. And if I listened to all those things, I wouldn't have gone after my goals, And I just appreciate the fact that I also had other people who pushed me and who believed in me and encouraged me. So hats off to you, and the rest of our students here. I'm just proud to be the superintendent, and I'm proud to be a Titan. I'm proud to be a parent in this community and a resident in this community, to see you all continue to thrive and just soar and achieve your goals. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
As always, I'm Jayson Makori, and once again, thank you for viewing this wonderful chat with our own superintendent, Dr. Hutchings Jr., and we'll see you next time.